Deep beneath the quiet forests of Florida lies one of the most dangerous frontiers ever explored by humankind, the underwater caves of Wakulla. Unlike ordinary scuba diving, where a diver can rise straight to the surface in case of trouble, cave diving offers no such mercy. Solid rock surrounds you on all sides, with only a narrow tunnel as your lifeline. A single mistake, an empty oxygen tank, a broken regulator, or a wrong turn, means certain death. Statistically, it is one of the deadliest adventure sports on Earth. For every 100,000 divers, over 100 lose their lives inside these submerged labyrinths. The reason the number isn't higher is simple. Only a few are brave, or perhaps foolish, enough to attempt it. One of the most infamous sites for such dives is Sherlock Springs in Florida, a beautiful but treacherous maze beneath crystal-clear water. From the surface, it appears like a calm circular pond only 9 meters deep, but below lies a limestone cave system plunging over 90 meters into darkness. It is part of the massive Wakulla Cave Network, one of the largest underwater systems in the world. On the morning of November 17, 1991, the weather was perfect. Sunlight shimmered on the water's surface as a team of professional divers from the Woodville Karst Plane Project prepared for a new exploration mission. Their goal: to chart unexplored tunnels and map out new passages of the cave. Among them were two friends, Bill and Parker, young, fearless, and hungry for adventure. For them, this wasn't just another dive. It was a chance to push their limits and make history. What they didn't know was that this journey would soon turn into the greatest test of their lives. As the team prepared for the dive, each group had its own crucial role to play. The first team stayed near the cave entrance, monitoring time, communication, and surface safety. They were the mission's lifeline, ready to respond if anything went wrong below. The second group was responsible for placing decompression tanks at specific depths. These cylinders would provide extra oxygen for divers returning to the surface, helping their bodies safely adjust to pressure changes. Without these decompression stops, survival was impossible. The third team handled guidelines and safety checks, securing ropes along the tunnels and double-checking every connection. These lines were the only thing keeping divers oriented in the pitch-black cave system. The final group, the explorers, consisted of Bill and Parker. Their task was the most dangerous: to venture into the unknown sections and record new routes. At 10 a.m., the team descended into the water. Bill and Parker checked their scooters and tanks one last time, whispered a short prayer, and began their descent. Around 20 meters below, they met George, a member of the decompression team, before moving deeper into the cave. Soon, they reached the narrow scars restriction zone, a passage so tight that only one diver could pass at a time. Their shoulders brushed against the rocky walls as their tanks scraped the ceiling. Once through, a breathtaking sight awaited them, a massive underwater corridor glowing in their torchlight, like a highway running beneath the earth. It was both beautiful and terrifying. They pressed forward, reaching the Grand Canyon 4 chamber in about 40 minutes. Following their plan, they descended deeper into the lower Wakulla room, navigating the tight tunnels with precision. Everything seemed normal. Confident and calm, they decided to turn back as their oxygen levels began to drop, unaware that the nightmare was just beginning. Bill and Parker began their return journey, following the same narrow tunnels they had passed through earlier. But when they reached the turn near the Grand Canyon chamber, everything had changed. The once clear water was now thick with mud and sediment, stirred up from somewhere deep inside the cave. Visibility dropped to zero. They couldn't even see their own hands. Their flashlights pierced only a few inches into the brown cloud that surrounded them. Panic started to creep in. The familiar route had transformed into an unrecognizable maze. Holding tightly to the guideline, they tried to move forward slowly, believing they were only a few meters away from the scars restriction zone, the passage that led back to safety. But within minutes, they realized something was horribly wrong. The path ahead was blocked. A massive pile of debris and clay had collapsed, sealing the tunnel. The guideline they were following disappeared into the rubble. Their oxygen gauges showed only a few minutes of air left. Fear took over. Bill signaled Parker and scribbled on his underwater slate, "Stay here. I'll check the line." He swam back toward the previous junction to make sure they hadn't taken a wrong turn. The markers confirmed it. This was indeed the exit route, but it was buried under the cave's fallen ceiling. Bill rushed back to tell Parker the grim news, but when he returned, Parker was gone. The beam of his light cut through the murky water. Nothing. Only drifting clouds of silt. Bill's heart pounded. Alone in the dark, his air running low, he realized the cave had turned into a tomb. He swept his torch around desperately until he saw something, a faint flow of water trickling from beneath the debris. Maybe Parker had gone that way. Without thinking, Bill began to dig. Each movement was a battle. Bill clawed at the clay with bare hands, pushing through the collapsing debris while his air supply ticked toward empty. The blockage was only 2 meters long, but in that suffocating darkness, it felt endless. Every breath burned. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he broke through the other side and crawled upward into a sloping tunnel. His lungs screamed for air. He saw a regulator hanging from the guideline, perhaps dropped by Parker, but ignored it, desperate to reach the next decompression station before his tank ran dry. At 30 meters, Bill found one of the spare oxygen cylinders and took a deep breath. Relief flooded through him. He was alive, but where was Parker? His eyes darted around, and then he saw it, a spare tank hanging untouched. Parker had never made it this far. A chilling realization washed over him. His friend was still down there. Moments later, George, the decompression diver, arrived. Bill scribbled a message on his slate. Parker didn't make it. George tried to guide him upward, but Bill resisted, refusing to leave without his partner. Eventually, the rescue team forced him to ascend. The next morning, Parker's body was found near the upper section of the cave, only a few meters from safety. His gear was gone. He had likely removed it, believing that buoyancy might carry him up. But without oxygen, he blacked out just short of the decompression zone. Years later, investigators discovered the cause of the collapse. As the divers descended, air bubbles had gathered beneath the cave ceiling, weakening the limestone until it gave way, triggering a landslide that sealed their exit. Evidence showed Parker had been digging the blockage to free the path for Bill when his air ran out. His sacrifice made it possible for his friend to live, a silent act of courage forever preserved in the dark heart of Sherlock Springs. In the silent depths of Sherlock Springs, courage met tragedy. Bill survived, but only because Parker gave everything he had to clear the way. His final act turned a story of fear into one of friendship, sacrifice, and the human will to survive against impossible odds. Stories like this remind us that nature's beauty often hides its deadliest challenges. Every diver who enters these caves steps into a world where one wrong move can mean the end, and yet, people still go, driven by curiosity and the call of the unknown. If you found this story powerful, make sure to like the video, share it with those who love real-life survival tales, and subscribe to Axion for more stories from the edge of human endurance. Because every shadow in history has a lesson waiting to be discovered.